So I've got my Magma canvas open over here, and before we dive into drawing, just a couple of things to keep in mind. Some terminology. We have three main types of perspective that we're going to be working with in these videos: 1 point, 2 point, and 3 point perspective. And the points being referred to here are vanishing points. This is where the lines of an object leading away from you would ultimately converge at. I'll show you what I mean in a moment. Then we're also going to be dealing with faces or planes, edges where planes meet, and corners where edges meet. Corners. Then you also want to keep in mind the sort of law of perspective, which says pretty much that an object as it moves further away from you is going to appear smaller. So let's say we're looking at a box in front of us. Okay, and this box is placed center with our eye level. We're looking through the center of this box. If you're looking from above, just to show you, looking in this direction, our box is perpendicular to the direction that we're facing. Okay, now all you can really see is this front face. You don't have any sense of volume, don't know how deep this box is. It could just be a sheet of cardboard. But let's say we can see inside of this box, and we can see this back end as well. Now this box, the sides on the opposite end are the same dimensions, but because this side is further away than this side, it appears smaller. So let's draw this out. I'm going to create a horizon line. And to create a straight line like this in Magma, all you do with your brush, tap a point on the canvas, push and hold shift, and tap on the next point. It's going to be quite convenient for the next steps. Then I'm going to set this as my central point. This is the direction I'm looking at, and the box is center with that. And so this point also happens to be our vanishing point. And I'm going to create a box center around it now by using the rectangle shape tool set to stroke so that it creates an outline. I'm going to tap that central point, and then holding shift and alt, I'm going to drag out to create a perfect square. And like I said, we can see the back end of this box, but it's appearing smaller than the front side. So we're going to have this smaller box inside of a box scenario. Then any lines leading away from us, like this one here and this one here, they're leading away from us. Those lines will trail off and converge at our vanishing point, like so. You see how that runs through each of the corners on the inside. Now we've got our box in 1 point perspective that we can see inside. But what happens if we decide to shift that box over to the left? Well then, instead of just seeing this front side, we start to see a bit of the right plane as well. And the same thing happens if we drop that a bit below our eye level in front of us. We're going to start to see a bit of the top plane. So let's draw it out. I'm going to first create my horizon line, set this as my vanishing point. I'm going to create my box below the horizon line off to the left. Now, like we did before, I'm going to connect our corners to the vanishing point. And then our horizontal lines and our vertical lines, because they're not moving away from us, and we're seeing this plane perfectly flat facing us, they're going to remain perfectly horizontal and vertical all the way through to the vanishing point. So I can drop a vertical here, do a horizontal line there, and we have our box. An easier way to do this would be to just grab your rectangle shape tool again, tap on the bottom perspective line and drag it out so that it fits within our other lines. Then we're going to just send one more line through from the front corner all the way to the vanishing point, and you'll see how it intersects with that back corner as well. So now we've got our box in 1 point perspective below the horizon. And you could set your box pretty much anywhere around this point and apply the same principles, just connecting your corners to the vanishing point. Now let's place this on top of a flat plane, a piece of paper for example. I'm going to create a new layer. And I'm going to create a straight line here for our page. It could be straighter. There we go. And then the same thing. I'm going to run these lines that are leading away from me off to the vanishing point. And then I'm going to set a straight line for the back of that. And then we've got our flat plane that the box is resting on. Now things are starting to look a little chaotic. So what I'm going to do is drop the opacity of both of these layers of construction lines. And on a new layer, I'm going to fill them in again. So I'm going to start with the piece of paper on the bottom, just using Shift to create my straight lines, making sure that I close that line. And then I'm going to fill it in with white as our blank page. Now I've lost my construction lines for the box. I'm going to bring those up. There we go. And I'm going to do the same thing here for the box, just marking out the planes that we can see, making sure to close my lines. And there we go. Now I want to give this a bit of form, cast a shadow, so I'm going to set up a light source. Let's place that up over here. Now what you want to do once you've placed that is drop a line from the light source, let's do from the middle, drop a straight line down to the ground. And from this point here, which is essentially the vanishing point for our shadows, will determine the direction of the shadow. So I'm going to draw a line from that point, moving through the corners of the bottom of the box. I'm going to make them quite long. Do the same on this end. Okay, the next step is to draw a line from the top, from the light source itself, through the top corners of the box. So I'm going to do the same thing here. You'll notice they intersect over there. And those are going to be the important points for completing our shadow. Alright, now things are starting to look a bit chaotic again. So I'm going to just drop the opacity. And then on a new layer, I'm going to link from the base of the box to these intersecting points to determine my shadow. I'm just going to go all the way around the box to close those lines. And now I can fill this in with my paint bucket tool. Make sure its target layer is active. And there we go. Now I'm just going to erase this part here because this is actually being covered up by the box itself. I'm going to do the same thing with the box. This side is obviously facing away from the light source, so it's going to have a bit of shadow as well. So I'm going to find my box layer, and I could just fill in on this active layer, but this time I'm going to create a new layer and set my paint bucket's target layer to below. So the lines of that box are going to determine the area that I'm going to be filling in on this new layer. There we go. This side will be getting slightly more light, and the top is going to be getting the most light from the light source. And there we go. There's our box, a one-point perspective in space with the light source casting a shadow. What happens though if we decide to take this box and rotate it a little bit so that this front face is now turned away from us slightly? Then we're going to have lines from these points leading off in two different directions and ultimately converging at two different vanishing points on the horizon. But to know how all that works, you'll have to check out the next video where I'll do pretty much the same thing. Create a box in space, set up a light source, cast a shadow. Yeah, so I hope you found this useful, and if If you have any questions, then feel free to drop a question below, and I'll see you in the next one.